This is what I'm about to read is good afternoon. Thank you for joining the City of Fort Lauderdale Infrastructure Task Force Advisory Committee board meeting. This meeting is being conducted using Zoom video conferencing in order to maintain proper social distancing during COVID-19. This meeting is open to the public and it's being recorded. A live stream of this meeting is available at www.fortlauderdale.gov/FLTV or on the city's YouTube channel. If any member of the public would like to participate in today's meeting, please visit the board's website and complete the brief speaker form. Once completed, you will be granted access to the meeting and you will be called upon at the appropriate time. If you're having trouble signing up, please email virtual event admin@fortlauderdale.gov. And to ensure that we follow the same protocol that during the in-person meeting decorum, please mute your phone when speaking. And with that, I will pass it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome to the meeting. Could we do the roll call, please? Oh, can we do the roll call without Pauline? Can somebody else do the roll call? Can I do it?
I can do it.
Actually, the prototype does the roll call.
Thank you, prototype.
All right, Chair Mamano.
Present.
Mr. Zeltman.
Here.
Mr. Partington.
Here.
Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Scott.
Present.
Mr. Angeli.
Here.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Grabsky.
Here.
And did I hear that Mr. Ladd was joining us late?
Yes.
Madam Chair, you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to the approval of the agenda. I would like to ask the group to allow us to move item number 5, new business, to the first order of business, because we have on the line the representative from the city's lobbying efforts, and she has to get back out to another meeting. So with the moving of item number 5 to the first item on the agenda, could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's start right out and let's get why I want to introduce Daphne Sanneville, who is our representative in Tallahassee. Daphne, you want to introduce yourself and explain to everybody who doesn't know you what your position is and what is happening up in Tallahassee relative to infrastructure?
Sure. My name is Daphne Saneville. Thank you, Marilyn. Good afternoon. I was about to say good morning. My role at the city is their government and economic development manager. On the government affairs side, I'm pretty much the in-house lobbyist working with our contract team. We have 3 state contractors and 1 federal contractor. So I do both state lobbying and federal lobbying for the city. It's pretty much every subject: health, public safety, transportation, infrastructure. So on the infrastructure side, we're going through a couple changes. The state's legislative session recently ended at around 2:30 on Friday. I was very excited that it ended while the sun was still up and they weren't debating $101 billion budget till the wee hours of the night, which is great because the past couple years they have been extending session because they couldn't agree on a budget. But this year, given COVID, working in the cloak of darkness, they decided to pass that budget. So I don't know where you want me to start. On the federal, more on the federal side, we have transportation, infrastructure. Everything came out around the same time. There was the Biden administration's American Jobs Plan, which is the overall tax structure. I'm sorry, transportation infrastructure bill. See if this is what happens when you multitask. So the infrastructure package with the American Jobs Plan hasn't been fleshed out 100%, but I'll talk about that after I talk about these earmark appropriation requests. We put in for the downtown Fort Lauderdale stormwater tidal valve project. It wasn't taken by Congresswoman Schultz. It was rejected because for earmarks, if some of you are not aware, It's the first time that they have brought earmarks back, which are member-directed spending projects, in over a decade. So it's been over 10 years since earmarks have been brought back on the federal level. We decided to take a stab at it by submitting a couple projects. Unfortunately, the tidal valve package was not taken by the Congresswoman. However, Congressman Deutsch did put in for a water infrastructure package, which is a joint package that we submitted with Wilton Manors and the city of Oakland Park. It was his request that he wanted to do, so he did put that in for us. Our original ask was 9 million. I mean, why not? However, he came back to us and said, hey, that's a little outside of the ballpark. Can you do a little under $1 million? So he's put in for 900,000 that we would split between the three of us to do an upgrade, improvement, and efficiency project for water wastewater systems that provide connectivity between our systems to deal with sea level rise, rising temperatures, and extreme weather. The detailed information has been sent to you in some backup, so I will not do you the disservice of reading it verbatim. I don't do death by PowerPoint or presentation, but that's the gist of where we are with it. As of last week, I haven't heard where it stands, but I will do some follow-up with his office. Last week, we also submitted projects for the surface transportation reauthorization bill. And we received 5.2 billion for the Breakers project. And that was the submission also with Representative Deutsch that got submitted. So he put those two projects in for us. Unfortunately, Congresswoman Schultz her list hasn't come out yet, but I don't think she has put anything in for us. Unfortunately, as you know, Congressman Alcee Hastings passed away on April 6th. So the representation in that area that Fort Lauderdale has doesn't have a representative. So projects didn't go in for the 20th district.
Okay. Did Congresswoman Schultz give any reason why she didn't put the bill in, the request in?
I believe something I wasn't aware of was they aren't in her district. So so I believe members cannot put in projects if they're not in her district. I think some of them we did put in are overlapped into her district. Also, we put in a lot of projects that were in that 20th congressional district because there was no staff for that, Alcee Hastings can't put in projects. They're very limited. They really can't do anything. Plus, I just don't have a comfort level where if they can't do anything, why submit it? But we did urge her as a member of appropriations to take those projects into consideration. So that's the rationale for not being able to. With earmarks as well, each member only had 10, and her district is rather large. So I can imagine, how many projects she received given the other cities that she also represents.
Pushing on all these channels. And what I don't quite understand is where a city like, particularly Miami Beach in Miami, Miami Beach has been raising seawalls and doing pump stations. The Corps of Engineers in the area there has got a very, very ambitious plan, not in any way funded. So I just wonder if we need to be more aggressive and ambitious, spoken as a layperson.
So the earmarks aren't necessarily, it's not money left over from the package, the American Rescue Plan package. It's actually just another set of dollars that are set aside for our congressional representatives. I know the state of Florida received 10.2 billion. The county as a whole received couple million. I knew it off the top of my head last week. And the city is receiving 39.6 million from the American Rescue Plan. Where those dollars have been allocated, I believe a majority of that will go to recouping what we've lost in general revenue, as well as other transportation infrastructure, water, wastewater projects, trying to pitch for small business development grants that we can provide to small and micro businesses that are still suffering from the repercussions. It'll go towards PPEs, other COVID related expenses that we got. Yes, earmarks are on the federal level a pretty unique, it's a unique set. And I can tell you we've pushed as much as we can, because I have been encouraging various departments to put in for these projects that were available, especially in earmarks. However, what's not there are certain funding pots that aren't being marked up for earmarks, which make projects ineligible. So when you look on that list, it showed that sidewalks, resurfacing and pavement were ineligible. That's because that particular agency's funding pot was not one of those entities that had the markup. So we had to be very careful in what we were submitting. I have definitely gone all out, Raj can tell you, in putting in projects for the surface transportation reauthorization bill. We put in 8 projects, and our federal lobbyist said we should have only put in 2 to 3, but I wanted to go big or go home with that Texas mentality, because I mean, the worst the government or the representative is going to say is, no, I'm sorry, I can't put in your project. And you have to remember, everything goes through our member office. So it's not like the city can just put in a project without having that member sponsor. So I have been working closely on the federal level to put in certain projects, writing letters of support from our city manager, receiving letters of support from this committee, which I thank you for very much, especially since it was done last minute. It's just things are told to us on Monday at 5 p.m. and it's like, hey, we need it at Monday at 3 p.m. I was like, thanks for letting me know.
Just on a technical level, I mean, my perspective is there isn't much point, or some of the purpose of going after tidal valves is mitigated if we're not at the same time raising seawalls. And I'm just be interested in, I'm not saying I agree with Miami Beach's approach to climate change, but they have and are doing a huge amount of work. But I've said enough, so thank you.
Okay, can you indulge me one moment, because I know Daphne, you said you had another meeting at 2:30.
It's been pushed to 2:45, so I have a couple extra minutes.
Oh, good. So before we get any further, and I will come back to this, but I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about the bill in Tallahassee on infrastructure, on impact fees, because that's very, very important to us. And we can circle back to the federal level again, but could you just give us an update on what is the status of the bill? I forget the number, but I'm sure Pauline is going to pull it up for us here. Okay, this is the bill. Let's get the number. Okay, that was it, Pauline. HB 337. What's the status? What is it for those who don't know, and what's the status?
So what it does, it just requires local governments and special districts to credit against the collection of impact fees. Any contribution related to public facilities or infrastructure. It provides different conditions where credits can't be applied, how local governments vote on increasing impact fees, the changes that the bill made, because it did pass. So it's been enrolled and it's waiting for the governor's signature. It hasn't been presented to him yet. Some of the changes provide for a supermajority vote when local governments need to increase their impact fees. They can't increase them more than 50%. It has to be in 25% increments, implemented in 2 equal amounts. The fee increase limitations are retroactive to January 1st, 2021. I'm trying to see. In order to increase them beyond 50%, the local government or the special district has to use a rational nexus test or a study showing the extraordinary circumstances that the increase, showing why the increase is required, the 2/3 vote, and the impact fee cannot be increased retroactively for a previous or current fiscal or calendar year. So it does have a significant impact on local government. I'll have to go through the analysis and then the final analysis, because in the last, I want to say the last week of session, there were some amendments filed. One of them was withdrawn, but I have to look at what that amendment would have done. There were a couple bills that I was following aside from this. So this is the basic breakdown of what the changes have been for impact fees.
Okay, and then Raj, you had your hand up because we were talking about the impact that this would have on our ability to collect impact fees in the city. So Raj, you want to chime in on this? Raj, you had your hand up?
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right, Madam Chair, thank you. Daphne and I have been working on this very closely. And we do believe that given our condition of the infrastructure and right now, I think based on the study that has been done, we are okay. But what impact it is going to have in the future, we would not know. So we were opposed to it because, what Daphne was saying, and this was something in the bill, which of course did not make any sense. The reason being that we do not arbitrarily set any impact fee. And it has to be preceded by a thorough analysis as to what your needs are and how you are going to set the rates. So I think, somebody, elsewhere must have lobbied the legislature, because I do know that smaller municipalities, they do have the tendency to arbitrarily impose the impact fee because they are trying to do what, maybe they were trying to balance the budget or they're trying to fund other projects. We don't know the answer. But I think, I'm just trying to speculate and I could be all wrong, but I think that might have guided why this bill is in front of governor for a signature. But as far as we are concerned, I think we are good for the time being. And, we have got a very thorough analysis that precedes establishing the rates. So again, I don't think that's the right thing to do, but I don't know what happens, the other counties, because of which we are where we are. But for the time being, I think we are okay. And then there are occasions when some developers, they volunteer to kind of do certain improvements, just to expedite their projects or just to be good neighbors. So, but that is not what we asked them to do. And, they want to do something voluntarily, fine. If not, then we are for the time being covered. I know that I've said it a few times that we are covered with our impact fee, but conceptually, I disagree what the legislature has done.
Raj, let me ask you a question. A new element in this bill would allow or would require municipalities to give credit for infrastructure improvements that were made by the developer against the impact fee. So I was concerned that, for instance, if we calculate our impact fee as we normally do, as you say, we probably have a very defensible mechanism for calculating the fees, and we just raise the fees incidentally, that would be a good thing. But if a developer, let's say, does some, a traffic light, is required to put in a traffic light, would the cost of putting in the traffic light be subtracted from the calculation of the impact fee under this bill?
No, if they are required to put a traffic light, Madam Chair, it is not tied to our water and wastewater infrastructure fee. That's a very separate item, and that is governed more by the county and the state, depending on where it is. But putting up a traffic light is totally different than our water and wastewater.
Well, let me give you a different example. If a development is required to change the size of a sewer pipe that goes from their project to the pump station, we have that occasionally, correct?
Yes.
Would the cost of doing that be subtracted from the impact fee?
Okay, I've had pretty extended discussion with our financial analyst, whose report was the basis of setting up the impact fee. And maybe because this bill is new and it has not been tested in court, so I would not know the answer. But what I was told is that if that development is causing us to increase the size of infrastructure, be it pipe or pump station, and it was not accounted for at the time the fee was established, then I think we would be okay to ask for that increase without giving them the credit. But that was my understanding. Again, I'm not sure how that is going to play out if it is challenged.
Okay.
So an amendment was filed to say that there's a requirement for the holder of the impact fee credit to receive the full credit for density and intensity paid for by the credit, regardless of whether it was established before or after the effective date. So they would still receive credit. That's my understanding of how it would work.
Yeah, I think you. I have talked about this with other planners from around the state, and I think Raj, you have it right. A lot of this is going to get played out in the courts, and we'll be playing court games with this one for quite some time until it shakes out. But Daphne, do you assume that this is going to be signed by the governor with no further changes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted everybody on the committee to understand that, impact fees, we talk about it a lot, and we're going to be talking about it again this afternoon. But this is what's happening in Tallahassee relative to impact fees. So can we go back to anyone who has any questions for Daphne on the funding on the federal level, or any other questions they may have? Yes, Daphne.
I did want to add in that we received 10.5 million for our DERS project. Am I right, Raj? For the DERS neighborhood. Did I get the number right?
Yes, we got the stormwater funding. Yes, definitely. Yeah, we got the grant. So
yeah.
That was the grant from the EPA, right? Raj, was that the EPA grant?
No, no, that came from the state.
Oh.
Definitely, that came from the state, right?
That came from the state, DEO, CDBG, MIT team.
Yeah,
for the mitigation.
So it's a combination. So it came from the state, and there were many applications. I think they chose the top 20, and we were one of the top 20s. And I think we got the full amount that we requested, which was $10.5 million towards the stormwater improvement. And I would like to commend all our staff that consisted of Raris, Patricia, Shannon. We have Daphne, absolutely, and Nancy and Rachel. So it was a great team effort, and we got and according to our budget director, this was after many years that we got a grant of this size. I have not checked my email. Apparently, we got another grant, slightly smaller, only $500,000, but we might be able to do the seawall on the Hendrick Isles, but I do not know all the details yet. So just, for the purpose of, this committee, we just want to kind of reiterate, and that segues what Peter was trying to tell us in the beginning about many different types of grants and programs that are out there. We are very aware, and any opportunity we get to apply for the grants, we do. The only problem that we face, and we have got different lists that we have provided to different folks, because many things are being talked about, and so we do not know what exactly the requirements are. Fortunately, we have got a good 5-year plan. And if we are given, and normally these things, they happen like overnight, you have to do it tomorrow morning or day after tomorrow with all the details, and many of those questions, you'd be surprised that the format differs from one congressman or one member to the other. So trying to piece everything together as quickly as possible does raise a challenge, but we are very aware, and we continue to apply for grants as and when the opportunity arises, but still there are many things in flux. And I can tell you that Broward County has been absolutely, they are moving at a glacial speed. They have not even approved what we submitted to them the first time, and they keep moving the goalposts. So we are battling all those challenges, but again, to respond back in simple terms, that we are aware of several opportunities and we continue to pursue them.
Okay, Jackie, you had your hand up, and then Peter again.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question, maybe a little bit off base, but on the lobbying level, Daphne, how many lobbyists do we pay for to lobby on the federal level?
We have one right now.
And who is that?
It is Alcalde and Faye.
Okay, and how long has that person been with us?
I would say before my time, and I
Okay.
just started in October of 2020.
Okay, so I'm just wondering with these lobbyists, I don't know who's good or who's bad, but do we make changes? Do we evaluate what they brought us? Obviously, you work for us, but it would seem to me over time, if you keep using the same lobbyist, I don't know.
Right.
You're probably missing something.
So ironically, we're going out to, I'm actually wrapping up contracts or the RFPs to go out to look for new lobbyists, or at least see the pool who's out there for the federal and for the state. So we'll see if we'll be keeping the same one based on qualifications, or swapping them out.
And is that the same on the state level?
The same. We have 3 on the state level. That RFQ is going to go out next week as well.
And they've been our same lobbyists for a long time, haven't they?
They have. But
and so I really wonder who's responsible in-house to look at the dollars and cents and what they've really done for us over a period of time.
So as of now, I know I'll be the main person on the ranking committee to look at those qualifications.
So prior to you, we probably didn't have one person that was responsible, correct?
That's right.
Correct. I believe it
so
was
those contracts just go out and people do it. Okay.
I believe it was the city administrator, city administration as well as budget, who had done that
in their spare time.
Well, it's good to have a dedicated person with expertise in this, so looking over this and making some
totally
recommendations.
Agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Peter, do you have any more questions? Yes. Peter.
So congratulations, Raj and everybody on the 10.5 million for DERS. But of course, it raises the obvious question: does that free up another 10 million or so in the stormwater bond?
Yes. So what we are going to do is that, as you know, that the $200 million stormwater bond covers only 7 neighborhoods. And so we would be able to add another neighborhood. We still have got phase 2 of our stormwater improvements is still in the pipeline. So we will be able to use this money towards adding another more pressing needed neighborhood, or we are just going to add, additional projects accordingly. So yes.
Good. That's excellent, because as you know, at the last commission meeting, we had asked we had recommended to the commission that any money that came from reallocating projects to the surtax, like for instance, bridges, which were previously going to be funded by the city's capital budget, and then were moved to the surtax funds, that those monies be reapportioned for other transportation projects and not be reassigned to non-transportation projects. In other words, if you got money for a stormwater project, you shouldn't then go and take the money that was freed up and previously allocated to that project and do another project. You should keep it in that same category of projects. That was our recommendation to the commission, I believe, at their last meeting. So it's good to hear.
Madam Chair, rest assured that permutation and combination is in full swing.
Good to
With
hear.
all the opportunities are there, and this particular grant funding of $10.5 million is an example that how we are going to reappropriate and reprioritize our needs. So that is in full swing, and I think the staff is extremely aware of this.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for Daphne? Her time is running short. She's got to go. Any other questions about funding sources other than the CIP and bond funds? That's where we're looking for her for money. No? All right. Thank you so much, Daphne, for spending some time with us.
No
And
problem.
keep those bucks coming in.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Wait a second, Roosevelt. Yes.
Yes, I had two quick questions. One was on impact fees and that House bill, Senate bill 33, whatever it was. Is the impact fees across the infrastructure will be affected by this bill? I'm talking about affordable housing, transportation, stormwater, sewer. Is we're going to be applying that rules and regulations across the full infrastructure program?
Daphne, is she gone?
So
No.
you're asking if this bill affects all impact fees?
Yeah, across all programs.
Yes, it does.
Wow. And my other question was the $900,000 for the water infrastructure program between the three cities. How would that be divided? Is it divided by city because it's three, or divided by population of the city?
We don't know yet how it will be divided. We're thinking it's going to be equally divided amongst the three of us, or just depending on how much it's going to cost per city to implement their portion of the joint project.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Okay, no other questions for Daphne. We can let her go.
And
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may request,
yes.
unless somebody has any question, I want to drop off for another meeting.
Okay.
So if anybody has any question, please feel free to ask me. Otherwise, always try to reach me, shoot an email, or however you want to communicate.
Okay. Thank you very much, Raj, for showing up.
Thank you. Thank you
and
very
we're
much.
gonna-
Appreciate it.
Right. And we're going to get back to our agenda.
All right.
Okay.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you, Daphne. Bye-bye. Okay.
Thank you, Deb.
Pauline, can you put the agenda up? We have Pauline with us? I could put it up if I could do it. Yeah.
Yes, I can pull it up.
Thank you very much. That keeps us on track. We got to stay on track. Well, while she's putting it up, I know what the number is. It's number 2. Item number 2 is general discussion and members' comments. Member comments. Okay, that's our usual sort of free-for-all discussion at the beginning of the meeting before we get into the substantive items. Peter, you have something? Oh,
Yes.
Wait a minute. Oh, I'm so sorry. We didn't approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Can we just quickly go back to that? I'm very sorry. See, that's why you pull up the agenda. Can we go back to approval of the agenda? Has everybody had an opportunity to take a look at the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Are there any comments before we introduce a motion to approve?
I have a post comment, Madam Chair.
A post comment, all right. So why don't we put somebody make a motion to approve the minutes, and then we
Motion
can take
to
comments.
approve the meeting minutes.
Okay, anybody second that? We got a
Second.
second. All right.
Second.
Now we have any comments on the minutes? Ralph?
Yes, thank you. I meant to say this last meeting, but I'll say it now, is that I'm very impressed with the ability of the minutes to be as accurate and contain as many of the discussions throughout the meetings. An outstanding job by city staff.
Okay, well, I'm sure that
My-
that's appreciated by the person who does the work.
Yes.
Okay,
I
Peter?
would, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. That's prototype, and that's actually Pauline that actually does a good job of reviewing through those minutes and then getting them to me. So I just want to make sure that that credit goes to the appropriate individuals.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Pauline, and the nice lady who takes the
Prototype.
minutes. Okay, Peter, did you have anything?
Not on the minutes, no.
All right, so then we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes of the previous meeting? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, all right. My bad, I forgot about that. Okay, so now, general discussion and comments by committee members. Peter, you had your hand up.
Yes, so on tomorrow night's commission agenda, there's a contract for award for 2.95 million for the Deep Well Power Project. And if you read the verbiage, it's kind of alarming because it reads as though one of the 5 injection wells at GTL could easily be lost in the near future in the sense of non-functional. And it's just kind of alarming, and it worries me because several times we've talked about the Reese report is finding that we actually needed another injection well there as well. So I don't know if anyone from staff can allay my fears and say it's not as scary sounding as the way it appears to be written up, but it's virtually 3 million to redo the electrics associated with the injection wells, and the way it's written, one is about to fail for that reason.
Omar, that would seem to be something that you might address, or Victor?
Actually, that's operations. I think Peter, operation is doing that, right? They're the one. Did you get that from operations?
Abby, correct?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So I'm not familiar with that exact project, but we can find out and let you know what.
Well, I guess if we can conclude it by saying if
Peter,
it's,
I'm looking at the agenda. I'm looking at the agenda item. I don't understand. What's your question?
so it's agenda item CP1, but it's
Yes,
also
I have it.
it's also written up under the item that does the budget transfers to create
Yes,
the
the budget
necessary
amendment.
fund. And if you read that item under that funding transfer, it says something like this is for replacement of electrical underground infrastructure and 5 off-site deep well injection wells, including the replacement of blah, blah, blah. This is a priority project as the plant has lost the ability to rotate one of the closed deep wells and may likely fail if the compromised underground wiring is not replaced. And my point is we've let it get to this stage where it's now reads like an emergency to get this work done. And we actually need another injection well, according to the Reese report that we had.
Right. So Peter, yeah, we do need another injection well eventually. That's a very long process. I don't know where operations is with that. I'm not sure if they applied yet for a permit. I think the permit takes quite some time to get. We can find out. But to answer your question about why did we let it go this long, I'm not sure of the history of this. I can ask operations and see if it wasn't available or it wasn't put enough. Okay. X reason.
So maybe obviously we're not opposed to awarding this contract, but maybe we get an answer next time as to how it got to be an emergency.
Victor, do you want to chime in here?
Yeah. I think the concern is the language, and as I did speak to staff about this, I apologize that the language might be a little bit of alarming. The juxtaposition of wording. The concern is not so much losing the well, but losing the ability to remotely operate to that particular well. The big problem we have right now is in the communication wires and the electrical wiring that enables the movement of pumps through the well, different wells through the control center. And it's not so much of the actual well itself there's any problems with, but it's the ability to utilize the control systems to move. So you choose which well you might be wanting to use at any one point for the ultimate concern is, but it's not a function of the well primarily. It's more of the ability to control what goes into those wells through the wiring and through the control structure.
Hey, so Victor, so the well can be operated manually then? It's just a control.
Yes.
Okay.
There's still the ability to operate the wells manually. Of course, that's a labor-intensive prospect, and this is trying to go back to the automation process so they can be properly rotated and sequenced and things like that.
Ralph, you had, yes? Let's get Ralph to say something. He's been waiting. Ralph?
Yes, that was my understanding as well, as far as the electrical, not the integrity of the well itself. And I'm read as best, that was my interpretation. And Victor, I'm glad you verified that. Also, we ought to be able to have an emergency backup system once they remove and replace the existing questionable electrical lines that provide the energy and communications, so that if there is something, you never know, if a lightning strikes or whatever, yeah, that's far-fetched, but if something happens, that we're ready to continue it. And the last point I want to make is hopefully that we have 5 deep, approximately 3,000 foot injection wells, hopefully with the aggressive replacement of or repairs of the aligning of the gravity sewers that's allowing a lot of the groundwater in, that may project the 6th well some way further in the future, if at all. Any comments on that, Victor or Omar? Thank you.
I agree with you.
And also, Ralph, I don't know if you have been following it, but the emergency backup generator was just recently funded. So
Yes,
Victor,
I applauded both.
Applauding that, yeah.
Both District 4 and District 1 commissioners on that. I know both were highly concerned about that. So I rejoiced on that one. Thank you.
Right. Okay, you and a lot of people rejoiced on that one. Peter, anything else before we move on?
Just to remind the staff, it was only a matter of months ago, and it was an couple of extreme rainfall events, but we had to put grey water into the intracoastal. So I just didn't want there to be any increased likelihood of that. And it sounds like there's a workaround currently. Yeah.
Okay, well, I know I share your concern for anything related to the water treatment plant, because that happens to be the one of the key linchpins in this adequacy review, having adequate capacity at the sewage treatment plant, which is actually a great segue, if everybody's willing, into the next item on the agenda, which is old business, the continued discussion of the development moratorium. We have some very important information at the end of this agenda about that, about pump stations and adequacy of the pump stations and water pipe breaks, which might in fact influence our discussion about the what's our position going to be on the adequacy of new developments. I know that I've been pushing very hard, and perhaps you think too hard, on us to come to a resolution of this issue. And we had talked at one point of having a workshop with the city commission before the summertime to talk about our recommendation. I don't know how comfortable people are at this point about making a recommendation. I had put together a sort of an outline about what the possibilities are in terms of what we could recommend. And they're really very simple. We have been asked to provide a recommendation on the feasibility and impact of implementing a moratorium on the acceptance of applications for the issuance of development permits. We looked at the ordinance. We looked at how the staff reviews the projects in terms of that ordinance, okay? We saw the whole spreadsheet. We saw a whole bunch of information about what projects are in the works, what planning projects, what capital projects are. We only can make one of three recommendations as I see it, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm happy to accept other interpretations, but we can either recommend, number one, that we do not recommend a moratorium at this time on the acceptance of applications for permits. We could make the recommendations that we do see the need for a moratorium on the acceptance of these applications. Or we could say we don't see the need for it, provided that we make the following adjustments. Those are like the three things I think we can think about in terms of what's our position going to be. And of course, whichever one of those positions we take, we have to say, and we looked at the following things, and this is why we make this recommendation. So if anybody wants—
I have a question.
Yeah, please, let's talk about this. Where are we
When you-
going with this? Jackie?
Well, I mean, when you talk about a moratorium, I would like to know if we're talking about commercial buildings, you know, multifamily high rises. Are we just talking about single family homes? Do we have the ability to make a recommendation of some types of properties and not others? Because I can't imagine doing a moratorium on single family homes.
Excellent point. And I think that when we had the discussion with the city's attorney, he framed it as the following choice. If the committee has found a situation that is so significant that the city can't meet its requirements for providing infrastructure, then a moratorium would be justified on some or all of the projects that are causing the problem. I don't think we've actually identified
or in the affected area.
Or you could do it on an area basis if you know, absolutely. So I don't think you have to look at it as a moratorium on everything. I don't think we have anywhere near the evidence to say that we need a moratorium on evidence. Do we have material and information to say that we need a moratorium on certain developments in certain places? I'm not sure yet. I know we have lots of maps. We have lots of information about pump stations, breaks in water mains.
What has resonated with me is in the discussions is the condition of the pump stations and the infrastructure in certain areas, which was the part that really wasn't closely looked at in making the determination. Yes, it's not part of the ordinance. And if I'm incorrect, please tell me. But that's kind of what I gathered from all of our discussions.
Okay, Peter, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think I agree with Jackie that what we have fleshed out is that staff is not considering the condition of the infrastructure. It is purely a capacity-based analysis. And it is a high bar to do a moratorium. And to me, from what I heard from the city attorney, one of the most viable approaches is that the moratorium be based on allowing time to redo the process by which developments are reviewed and examined. However, the city attorney also said that we would need some expert testimony. So even if we he seemed to say that it was possible to do a moratorium on that basis, but you'd need an expert to be able to stand there and say development should be halted while the city's whole way of reviewing developments is re-examined. And that's a big step to take.
I
Okay,
agree.
Ralph?
That
Ralph?
scares me.
Yeah, Ralph?
Yes, thank you. I agree with what Peter was saying, and my experience has been when I've witnessed moratoriums being issued, it's based on the treatment plant, water treatment plant, for an example, running out of the capacity to meet the new developments being constructed and anticipated and calculated flows of demand that would be required. And so that's it in a nutshell. And you know, essentially, if you have large developments coming in and you're approaching the capacity, that's the red flag that needs to be waved so that provisions can be made to increase the capacities of the water treatment plants in the case of water.
But I don't think we have any information that we're reaching capacity in terms of the water, the ability to supply water. Nobody has presented any information that I remember having seen that we have a problem with providing adequate amounts of water for the development that's ongoing,
right,
or projected.
Right.
So water is not going to be it.
Yeah, that's my belief too. And I mean, I think we have a sufficient capacity, but it's you know, again, it's the developments as they come into be and they apply for, and they have certain amount of requirements. Now, as far as wastewater goes, you know, it's a capacity type of issue as far as moratoriums, and that's my experience in the past.
Okay.
I wonder.
Jackie, could I ask you please, before we talk more about this, I would like to get some of the other members of the committee who might want to weigh in on this, Shane or Michael or Jerry. Any one of you want to, jump into this discussion about, do you see that we have got enough information one way or the other to make this recommendation? Jerry, Shane, or Jerry? How about you? Well, he was going somewhere.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Jerry, jump in here. What is your feeling at this stage of the game? Do we have enough? Have we been presented with enough information to make you comfortable making a decision one way or the other? Is there anything you want us to explore more?
The one, I'm refreshing my own memory as I speak here. The one item is, I'm convinced that the city and the people in power and that have the responsibility to review whatever it is that wants to be constructed, the impact that will have on the community and the infrastructure in the community. I'm convinced that that happens. Those people know what they're doing. They're competent. Capacity. We talked a lot about condition, which I believe has to be added to the analysis, but none of the analysis is done and the requirements are put forward. The only thing I don't know is how well do they follow up on that to make sure whoever wants to do the development actually does what they're supposed to do to have it completed properly. I think that happens, but it's the existent proof that it happens and that it happens in a timely way so that we avoid the situation of, well, it's built, now we got to open it,
Okay, I'm hearing you. It's a timing issue. So I'm hearing so far it's a condition issue and a timing issue, right?
That's it.
Okay, how about Michael or Shane? You want to jump in here?
Sure, Madam Chair, it's Michael.
Hi, thank you, Michael.
Hi. I do agree with what I think's been the general sentiment of others is that, it's a big decision, and to shut the business of the city down would be a very big decision. I I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe that there's a capacity issue, or that staff hasn't either beforehand conditioned like building permits on required offsite improvements that are needed to address capacity issues or service needs of a new development, whether it's commercial or residential. I've seen loads of evidence that there's been lots of deferred maintenance, and there are lots of weak points in the system that are really not related to new development. It's just that this just hasn't been maintained. And so I just don't know how you connect that to a moratorium. I mean, given the consequences of shutting business down like that.
Okay.
I do think the city's been moving, but I mean, incredibly head forward with making a lot of these repairs and dealing with the maintenance issue. And so in my mind, I don't know why you would slow that down, but I just don't see the connection, to be honest with you.
Okay, but I'm putting down from what I'm hearing from you that you have a concern that there may be weaknesses in maintenance, and there may be certain weak points in the system that we have to, shore up at this time. What were you thinking of? Like, was it just like a particular pipe is a weak point, or
well,
certain
I think
systems?
haven't we seen where there are instances where pipe is compromised, its integrity is compromised, where lift stations are functioning at subpar levels? I mean,
Yes,
I think
we
that's something that what we've seen, yeah. And so
So it's
I mean,
individual weak points, not systematic weak points.
Right. I can't say that staff has somehow dropped the ball on analyzing capacity that's both generated by new development and available to serve that new development, and that staff has missed a situation where an offsite improvement was needed for a project, that it either wasn't required or was somehow they didn't pull through and implement those improvements, yet somehow got a CO. I just haven't seen that that's happened.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I missed it, but I haven't seen any of that's happened.
That's important. That's important.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I said, it's if there are weak points, I can understand how you could be concerned that well, there's a weak point here and it's under a lot of stress. How much more stress we want to put under it? I don't know why a commercial wastewater would be any less desirable in that situation than residentially generated wastewater. It's a weak point in the system that's just due to its age, not what I mean. And so. So then it's like, well, how do you treat them differently? And so if you're not treating them differently, you're doing what other people have pointed out to you that could be rather draconian, and that's shutting everything down.
Okay. I'm hearing you.
Which I just don't know if we're there yet. I just don't think we're there.
Okay, that's what I want to hear. I want to get a sense of the group, and what I'm hearing from you is like, if there are weak points in the system, that a condition, that is a weak condition in the system. It's not the system is broken or the system is inadequate, but either through age or maintenance or something, there is a component, let's say a pump station, that's not adequate. Am I reading you right?
Yeah, and to fix it. I mean,
okay,
you fix it. I know that. I know. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean,
cool.
So listen, and I'm not saying the moratorium's going to fix it. I mean, it may give you a chance to fix it in the meantime, which you ought to be doing anyway. And so what I'm weighing out is, well, what's the consequence of shutting everything down? I mean, is that really what's needed in order to fix it?
Gotcha. Okay. Is there something less than a moratorium that's needed to fix that, to deal with that?
Right.
Got it. Okay. Shane, how about you? Are you with us?
I think,
there he is.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
I think the city has done great things with the evolution of the wastewater capacity, or the water and wastewater capacity letters that they're doing now, and the reviews from what it was even 2 years ago. Okay. So they're doing their part, I feel, on making sure that the capacity is there, and whatever they can look at from their data. What everybody keeps saying, I completely agree with, is the conditional analysis, and I don't know the best way that is explored, but I think that's really the weak point in the system right now. And I don't know that a moratorium could necessarily help that until all the weaknesses are identified, and then you were to say, okay, this entire section needs to be shut down to replace all the water main. And I don't know that there's necessarily even that condition in the city anywhere. I think there's other means of identifying some conditional issues, whether it's like they've done with the valve exercising program, whether there's a fire flow test program that they can implement and test throughout the city at different times, just to verify that the flows are there and that there's not issues existing. And because right now the only time they look at the fire flow tests are when a new development is proposed, and it's to verify that the capacity is there. So I don't know if there's programs like that they could look into, that they could potentially propose, that would give us a better idea of the condition. But as it stands right now, I think that the staff is doing a great job looking at the information that they're given on a project by project basis and making the recommendations that they think are necessary to bring that system into working order for that proposed development.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's go back to Jackie and Peter. Jackie first.
Yeah, I'm ready to support no moratorium and recommend that through all of our discussions and analysis and presentation, that staff does a remarkable job, and that we as a city should revisit the ordinance in regards to issuing these letters and increase the necessity to make sure that, and I don't know how to do this, to make sure that the condition is addressed, because I think we owe this obviously to the city, the people in the city, to make sure they know how we've addressed this and thoroughly analyzed it. And I think everyone here has mentioned that the condition is one of the issues, be it right or wrong. If we could address it in an ordinance, it'll give people confidence and we can move off this topic, because we've beat it to death.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
So I'm nearly where Jackie is, and I'm wondering if we could pass, when we go to the commission, I'm wondering if we could go with a motion that we've approved, that is calling on the city not to introduce a moratorium, but to direct staff to redo their development review process as regards water sewer, with a view to including condition, or more than including condition, explicitly talking about condition of the affected infrastructure. Or we could ourselves pass such a motion and ask staff to take one of their most recent examples and to rework it to add a consideration of condition. What disturbs me slightly is that it seems that the staff that are reviewing capacity are not in the loop on all the information that is available on condition. So I don't know if we need the commission to direct staff to do it, or whether we can just make the request, and depending on what staff gives us back, then formulate a final position. But I have a sort of motion in mind.
Can I ask you to wait on that till we hear from Roosevelt, because Roosevelt hasn't weighed in yet, if he wants to. Roosevelt, do you want to give a thought on this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me say that almost what everybody have said is true and correct. And I'll just like to make sure, if we're not going to do the recommendation on the moratorium, and that, which is fine with me, then we should let the commission know that they should put policy in place to ensure that staff take all necessary steps to identify potential problems in the future and I'm talking about, maybe it's a 5-year plan or 8-year plan, but something way up front, not something that's next week. Because if we get to that point, then we have to do moratorium whether we want to or not. And the other thing is, the thing that I mentioned when this whole moratorium came up, was that we use the same language when we are referring to delays. They say temporary and short-term and long-term and permanent. They are not mutually the same. So if we are going to make these recommendations, let's make recommendations on the language that they should only use short-term and long-term, or temporary and permanent, not both interchangeable.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ralph, you had something more to say?
Yes, I concur with everybody that's been speaking. We're all singing the same tune. And I like the idea that Roosevelt indicating, I guess, the language instead of short-term, long-term. I like to see something more definitive, like maybe within 5 years or 3 years or whatever, so that everybody knows the time span that's being projected to evaluate or projected for capacity capability. So yeah, I think collectively we're saying the same thing, and that we need to get back to the commission and tell them this, and need verification on what the capacities and conditions are via the city staff.
Well, we've had the city staff here talking about these things.
Right.
We had the people from Public Works and the people from Sustainable Development, the people who actually do these things, okay? And I was a little confused in their presentations whether or not condition was part of their review. At one point they said, sure, we do condition. And at another point they said, no, we didn't do condition. And I think maybe the term condition is the problem, because when I think of condition, I think of, is the pipe going to break? And when they think of condition, they think of, is the pump station running, within an acceptable range? So I'm not sure we're all talking about the same thing when we're talking about condition.
Madam Chair, maybe I misunderstood, but at one point during one of the meetings, they talked about the statement they issue comes from an ordinance that dictates how they're supposed to evaluate it. That's why I was talking about ordinance.
No,
maybe I'm wrong.
No, we showed the ordinance at our last meeting, and the ordinance has like 20 categories. Only 3 of which are water, sewer, and stormwater. Those are the only things we've been reviewing, but there's other categories. There's parks, there's fire and police, there's traffic, there's historical resources. They're supposed to go through all of those items. We've only been dealing with the 3, water, sewer, and stormwater. And what they do in their analysis, and you could see it in the spreadsheet, the key thing in the spreadsheet is the pump stations. Every project is evaluated on the basis of whether it will make more impact on the pump station, and can the pump station handle it? Now, that doesn't mean that in the development process or the review process, somebody doesn't look at the pipes and say, we got to have a bigger pipe. And that shows up in the letters that go to planning and zoning. Okay, but when the staff reviews pursuant to the ordinance, unless I missed it, I looked at that spreadsheet, and when you go across the spreadsheet, the only relevant thing is the pump station. It's not even the capacity at the sewage treatment plant.
So that you're making my point.
Okay.
If we're going to get change and we want to say that we've evaluated this and this is our recommendation, that needs to be incorporated into the ordinance.
Maybe that's what we need to do. Yeah. Maybe. Okay. That's
or that can be our recommendation.
Okay, Peter?
Yes, as Jackie was talking, I was finding myself agreeing with what she was saying. The strongest method for, short of a moratorium, for ensuring that condition is considered would be to write it into the ordinance.
Okay. You know what? Maybe what we should do is we should ask the city attorney to come back next month and make some recommendations of how we could incorporate condition in the existing ordinance. What do you think about that as an idea? Anybody?
Can't we just move it?
Well, I don't think we can write it because we're not the ones who write the ordinance language. So
Right.
either we just make it as a recommendation
To the city commission and let them talk to the city attorney.
maybe Peter?
Yes, I think I'm thinking of along the lines of, let me try a motion. It may have to be reworded because I'm somewhat doing this off the top of my head. So my motion would be that it's passed to the city commission, that the city should consider the condition of the water, sewer and stormwater infrastructure impacted by developments, in addition to the capacity of impacted infrastructure, and that the ordinance currently governing development should be amended to include explicit consideration of capacity of condition of the infrastructure. It's a bit
I second that. I second that, Peter.
I'm not sure I can repeat that now, but
Okay, well, we'll hopefully get the person who's taking the minutes to repeat that, but I think we all understand that. Michael, there's a motion on the floor with a second. So would you like to discuss that, address it?
Well, I guess just there is a point of clarification from my ask. Going back to what you were saying earlier, Marilyn, about you felt like you were getting conflicting information, and a lot of what Peter said too. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense for staff to be looking on a continuous basis at the condition of its infrastructure, right, and the aging of its infrastructure, and where it could be, compromised and its integrity. And of course, doing it through the context of a development review, may be just convenient. I mean, I think they need to be looking at the condition of the infrastructure anyway, without someone having submitted an application for a site plan, let's say. But are we saying that if there's like deferred maintenance, if there's old aging infrastructure that doesn't even adequately support the infrastructure that prompted it, that needed to begin with, that all of that, the idea is that the city would take that maintenance obligation and put it on this one applicant for a site plan. I mean, is that what we're saying? That because I don't know, that would give me some concern how far you can sanction that under Florida law, to require a new development to not only address its impacts, but to correct existing deficiencies.
I would think it would just slow the project down. I don't know how we could turn around and expect one project to pay for some astronomical change that needs to be made. So I mean,
right, or just a piece of
it.
Whether it's a piece of it, I think we need to ask the city attorney whether.
Yeah, but I don't think we'll make that decision, Mike.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Is that what we're asking?
No.
In the motion. No,
we can't make the final decision as to how it's rectified if it's found out. The city attorney and staff has
the
to.
Motion. Okay, so again, the motion. I'm just trying to clarify. My apologies. The motion would be that staff would consider. I mean, obviously, they ought to be doing it anyway, but would consciously consider and report on the condition of impacted infrastructure. But that's not to then turn around and say that the new development has to address some percentage of that existing deficiency. It's just so that we are always up to speed as the city on the condition of our infrastructure and where maintenance dollars need to be directed. Is that right?
So think about this: if it comes to the Planning and Zoning Board, and that letter turns around and states that the condition of this infrastructure is deficient, then it's going to be hard for Planning and Zoning Board members to approve it without some type of resolution. But I don't think motion
But you
from
mean,
this
are you
committee,
talking capacity deficiency, or are you talking it's just
whatever the
lack of-
deficiency is, but that's not our job, I don't think. I think our job is to report our findings and make a recommendation, but not to go a step further on how that's going to be handled. Peter, do you agree with me?
Yes, and as we've discussed, Michael, it's very difficult for any expert, you, me, anybody, to say that this on high-risk infrastructure, which is that category that Hazen Sawyer has come up with, certain of our infrastructure, right. It's very difficult, unless it's a huge development, for any expert to say, if you approve this development on this high-risk infrastructure, it will fail. You're not going to find anybody. I'm thinking.
No, I totally get that.
I'm thinking along the lines of that if a development review is prepared and there is no mention of the condition of the infrastructure on which additional load is being placed, then the public, the commission, the P&Z board would have the ability to say, well, you haven't told us how at risk the infrastructure is that this is going on to.
Right. Okay. So it's like a reporting. It's a reporting that but it's not the shift in obligation. We're not asking for that. Okay.
Right.
That's all I wanted clarity on.
No, let me ask you a question, Peter. I mean,
yes.
Our charge was to recommend whether or not we should have a moratorium on the acceptance of the issuance of the permit. So what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is the procedure for the acceptance of an issuance of a development permit should be changed to affirmatively deal with the condition of the infrastructure in addition to the capacity. Is that your motion?
Yes. Don't forget that probably the best that staff or anybody doing this review can say is this is putting X millions of gallons per day on a 200-foot length of sewer pipe that has been identified by Hazen Sawyer as being at high risk. Now, the person that prepares that review is then going to get asked by P&Z, etc. Well, does that mean that it's likely or going to fail? And the answer to that will be, we cannot say that, but you're putting more load onto high-risk infrastructure. That's the best that can really be said, I think, unfortunately.
Oh, I wouldn't want to put that responsibility either on the staff or P&Z, because then, if you're sitting in P&Z and they send you a letter that says, they send the appropriate capacity letter and say, we got a capacity, da-da-da-da. But I want to point out to you that, there is a problem with a particular portion of the system that's, either hasn't been maintained or is likely to fail, or we don't have money in the budget to fix it in the time frame. Again, getting back to Jerry's issue of the time frame issue. Would the P&Z then be?
Let me step in.
Yeah. Would you say no? Would you say no?
Let me step in.
Okay.
Before it becomes to the Planning and Zoning Board, it's going to be going through DRC. And
Right.
through that DRC process, the staff that makes the recommendation on the infrastructure is going to know if there's a problem. And they're going to have to work that out, whether it's saying, yes, the project's great, but this has to be fixed first, and we're going to do it. They're not going to bring it to P&Z with faulty infrastructure, because more than likely, most members would vote it down.
Oh,
right?
I'm saying,
But
so
is
you're
it-
thinking, yeah, go on, I'm sorry.
So, I mean, I think through all of our discussion, we're recognizing condition is extremely important. We want to make sure that it's taken up very seriously by staff. And we have to deal with this as it occurs, as they uncover that here's a project and this condition is bad and they've got to solve it. I don't think we as we're not a board, a committee, can turn around and decide how that'll be solved. And I don't think any of us here want to do the moratorium, but we just want to responsibly deal with what we think is the most pressing issue that isn't being addressed, which is condition. And I think we've done a good job figuring that out.
Okay, Peter, can I ask the lady, Michael, you want to come back again? Michael and then Ralph. Or Ralph and then Michael, whichever comes in first, whoever comes first.
10-4.
Okay.
Yeah, I think really the moratoriums is a regulatory agency mandate on the utility company as far as capacity is concerning. So it's not going to be whether or not the city wants one or not. It's going to be the regulatory agency dictating that they have insufficient capacity to provide to the new development requests coming in. So, but I think it's important because of the history of the pipe failures that there'd be some kind of provision with the condition of the aging pipe in certain areas that are 50, 60, 70 years old that are essentially have started to fail, that there needs to be some, mandate to enact the city to, as opposed to a regulatory giving a consent order for them to start fixing and maintaining or replacing these failing arteries in the system. But as far as moratorium is concerned, that's really my experience has always been with like I gave earlier with like in water, it'd be like the health department or someone that or another regulatory agency as far as the Lomar plant can't handle the treatment or the disposal of the wastewater. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement. We just need to get the verbiage, and going through the attorney is a good idea. And just to make sure that we're not recommending a moratorium. We think it needs to be coming from certain criteria established by the regulatory agencies. I think that's where it lays.
Okay, can I ask the prototype Krista? Krista, could you read back that motion that Peter made? Maybe we want to wordsmith it a little.
Absolutely. Peter, let me know if I have this right. The city should consider the condition of the water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure impacted by developments in addition to the capacity of impacted infrastructure, and that the ordinance currently governing development should be amended to include explicit consideration of condition of infrastructure. I feel like maybe we repeated
That's beautiful.
Condition of infrastructure.
I still second that motion.
That's beautiful.
Not bad.
Very
Not bad.
good.
Not bad for off the top of your head. Michael? Michael?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, you had your hand up.
I that was inadvertent earlier.
Okay. Jerry, what are you thinking?
I think the discussion was robust enough to say, yeah, that's, I completely agree with Jackie, right?
Okay.
It's for us to say that enough work is done, here's what has to happen, but then how it happens, that's the purview of the powers that be.
Okay, Charlie, you're with us. Did you get an opportunity to listen to that motion that's been on the floor and seconded?
I did listen to the motion, and obviously I missed the discussion. My apologies. I had an emergency. My only question is, are we basically just kicking the can back to the commission then?
No.
Well, no, because they asked us for our recommendation. This is it. We don't recommend a moratorium, but we do recommend that the ordinance be, did we say changed or reviewed to include conditions specifically?
Condition as well as capacity.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right.
Progress.
Wow. Roosevelt, how about you? You want to chime in?
I'm good.
Okay.
We know you're good, but Marilyn wanted to know if you wanted to chime in.
Good is good for me. Good is good enough for me. Okay, and let's see. Shane.
Do you want
Shane,
public?
still
Do you
with us?
want public? Is there any person from the public, Marilyn, wanting to talk on this issue?
No, that's not, we have a motion on the floor. We're not taking
Okay.
public comment at the moment.
Okay, well, I
Um,
just didn't want to forget.
Is everybody sort of ready to vote?
Yep.
All right, well, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Krista, could you take the roll, please? Krista?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Ladd,
Yes.
Mr. Grabsky,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Angeli,
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
I'll be Mrs.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry, Miss Scott. I'm sorry. Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Mr. Partington,
Yes.
Mr. Zeltman,
Yes.
Chair Mamano.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, God, that's like a weight
Fantastic.
lifted off our shoulders.
Okay, now we can start having fun again.
Okay, no, now we can go on to the rest of our agenda and we'll figure out how we send this over to the commission as a communication and to follow it up with a workshop with them if they're going to want to ask us, more information about how we came to this and what we mean about it. That would be up to them. I think we have fulfilled our obligation under the mission statement that they gave us. Okay?
Perfect.
Do we,
Madam Chair,
Yes?
would you like to make a motion to request a joint workshop?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I
Do
would
we
like
need
to
it?
make, yeah, I think so. I think we owe it to them to tell them what we've been doing, how we came to this. And I think we should also be asking them, what do you want us to do now? I mean, are we going to keep doing this for the next 10 years? We've done this for 4.5 years, some of us, and some of us for less time. And I personally would like to get some guidance from them of
Okay, if
what
that's
more do you want us to do?
did we do anything with sidewalks?
No, we haven't done sidewalks. We haven't
Wasn't
done
wasn't
traffic.
that part of our job?
Yes, we have, but it's not yes, you are right. That is part of our job. We have not done that.
Not the headline item.
Yeah, right. It's not the
What'd you
headline
say,
item.
Charlie?
It's not the headline item.
Right.
Yeah,
And if they want us to work on it, they could give us a little more guidance.
that would be nice if they would give us a little more guidance.
So what have we not done? We haven't done sidewalks. We haven't done
Traffic, we haven't done, well, we didn't do parks. We decided not to do parks because we actually got a parks bond and we got a plan.
I don't think we should do traffic either.
We have a surtax and there's a plan for spending all that surtax money. We have, we didn't do police because they passed the bond to do police.
How about bridges? How about bridges?
We haven't done any of that. That's part of transportation.
Okay.
Sidewalks and roads and bridges, that's all.
We did
sort of roads.
seawalls, right? Kind of.
In a way, kind of, but that's sort of like under stormwater, you know?
If I may, for sidewalks, back in 2015, the city came up with a program to replace sidewalks based on the deviation of the sidewalk, uplifting everything, because they had a lot of problems with the trees and the swales, with the roots growing laterally over and uplifting the sidewalk. So they did come up with a program, and that might be used as a starting point to continue that effort on reoccurring damages to the sidewalk.
I think that that's a good idea. I think that we should discuss sidewalks, and I think we should really push to get these sidewalks repaired, because the program that Ralph is talking about was, I have to say this on the meeting, was so poorly handled by staff. It was ridiculous. Lack of notification, coming in, ruining people's swales, doing this much of the sidewalk, skipping that because the crack's not big enough. I mean, it was just a mess.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to discuss sidewalks and try to come up with a program or suggestion that they do.
Okay, well, we certainly can make it. We have the ability under our mandate to take out those items. But I think it would be also good to sort of check in with the commission and say, these are the things we've been doing. This is the kind of information we've been gathering. We came to a resolution on your specific issue.
Right.
And, what do you want us to do going forward? So I would like
I agree with that.
I would like to make a motion that we send this resolution over to the commission as a communication to the commission and request that they schedule a workshop with us to discuss this and the ongoing mission of the
Perfect.
Infrastructure Committee.
Perfect.
I second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Roosevelt. Anybody want to speak to that motion? Shane?
Since our charge was specifically to decide whether or not a moratorium was necessary, I don't think we spoke to it in that recommendation to staff, right?
Oh, no, we did. We very specifically wanted to read it back again. I mean, it's passed, but we could read it back and it's very specific. We do not recommend the moratorium.
Okay, I don't remember hearing anything specifically about the moratorium, but if it's in there, I trust you.
Right.
And actually, to be honest, since I couched it, I don't remember that either.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, well, let's make sure. Let's read it back again. Oh my God.
It does not say the word moratorium in it.
Oh my God. All right. Could you read it back again?
For sure.
Thank
The
you.
city should consider the condition of the water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure impacted by developments in addition to the capacity of impacted infrastructure, and that the ordinance currently governing development should be amended to include explicit consideration of condition of infrastructure.
Oh my God, you're right, Shane.
That's okay. This is easy.
That's fine.
Easy.
Just a second motion.
Second
Yeah.
motion. We need, Peter, would you
We
like
don't
to
need
do
a second one. We need
and we don't,
we need an addition to that motion.
It's a new motion. Just
It's
make
a
a new
new
motion on
motion.
the record. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Peter, since you made the original one, you want to make that one?
Just add a sentence ahead of it.
I'll try, but just so for clarification, do we have to somehow vote down the motion that we passed, or we can just couch an amended?
You can recall the motion and then amend it and then put it back out.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to recall the motion?
Yes, I make a motion to, so it's all going to be one action, correct?
No, let's recall and then let's reformat.
I make a motion, we recall the motion passed just 15 minutes ago.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, everybody who's in favor of that, please, let's do this by a voice vote. This is an important vote. Let's do the voice vote for recalling the motion that we previously passed so that we could fix it. So prototype, Krista, would you please call the roll on the recall?
Okay. Mr. Ladd.
Yes.
Mr. Grabsky.
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Angeli.
Yes.
Ms. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Mr. Partington.
Yes.
Mr. Zeltman.
Yes.
Chair Mamano.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Motion recalled. Peter, you want to restate that motion with the
Yeah.
with a sentence in the beginning saying
Perfect.
not recommend a moratorium at this.
Yeah.
We do.
The motion now is that the infrastructure task force does not consider that a development moratorium moratorium related to infrastructure is necessary, but
However,
However,
the
and
city,
then all the
said-
other words from before.
all the rest of it exactly the same.
Okay.
I second.
Thank you very much. Crystal, could you read that now, please?
Just want to make sure that, can I just read that part to you back, Mr. Partington? The
Yeah.
infrastructure task force does not consider that a development moratorium related to infrastructure is necessary, however.
Okay, and then
At
all
this
the
time,
previous
at this
words.
time.
At this time.
Yes.
At this time.
Where would you like at this time added?
Before, however.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and then all the words from the previous motion, which was so perfectly put.
Okay. The infrastructure the infrastructure task force does not consider that a development moratorium related to infrastructure is necessary at this time. However, the city should consider the condition of the water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure impacted by developments in addition to the capacity of impacted infrastructure, and that the ordinance currently governing development should be amended to include explicit consideration of condition of infrastructure.
Oh.
I
that's a thing of
second that.
beauty.
I second
God,
that. That's perfect.
That's a thing of beauty. Okay, any further discussion before we vote on this? All right, Krista, would you please take a vote on this new motion?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Ladd.
Yes.
Mr. Grabsky,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Angeli,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Mr. Partington,
Yes.
Mr. Zeltman,
Yes.
Chair Mamano.
Yes. Okay.
Good
My-
job.
My thanks to Shane for pointing that out. That would have been terrible. Thank you, everybody. That was a heavy lift, and I'm glad that that lift is over now. So we can get back to the issue of let's forward this as a communication to the City Commission and request a workshop with them to discuss the recommendation and the work going forward. Anybody want to second that?
Second.
Okay. Anybody want to talk about that? Does that seem reasonable for everybody as a way to go forward? Can we also take a roll call vote on that motion? Krista? Do you want to read that back?
Sure, one sec.
Thank you.
It's buried in the middle because of moving the
No,
agenda.
take your time,
Sorry.
take your
One
time.
sec. Okay. So the motion is to send this resolution to the commission as a communication and request they schedule a workshop to discuss this and the next steps.
That was it. Okay, can you call
The
the roll,
next step
please?
for the, well, okay, never mind.
Yeah,
The next steps for the
For
infrastructure.
the committee,
the
Not
next
the
step
ne-
for the committee.
Yes.
for the committee,
Yeah, not the next step in the world, the next step for the committee. What are
or
we
the
doing?
next step in that, next step in the committee.
Right.
Defining.
You want me
right.
to specifically write the name of the committee, or would you like me to write for the committee?
Put the name in. Let's make it official looking.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Can we take a roll call on that?
Mr. Ladd,
Yes.
Mr. Grabsky,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Angeli,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Mr. Partington,
Yes.
Mr. Zeltman,
Yes.
Chair Mamano.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Taking a breather. Pauline, is there anybody from the public who has signed up to speak before we go on to finish our agenda?
No, we have no speakers that signed up to speak.
Okay, well then, thank you very much. We have done item number 2, item number 3, item number 4, big item. Item number 5, which was Daphne, and we're on to item number 6, Public Works Update. Infrastructure adequacy for new development, pump station. The
Yes,
state
we have
provided
John
a
on the
very-
line for that.
Yeah.
Jetta.
Hello,
Get us down some.
Anisha?
We have
Who's speaking?
Dronix
Yeah.
who will be speaking on that.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure everybody looked at the material that the staff sent us, and they have a very, very interesting graphic on the issue of pump stations. Can you pull that up, Pauline? I
Yes.
assume this is what the staff will be speaking about. I could be wrong.
Yes, I'll be pulling it up now.
You're correct.
Okay.
Dronix, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to speak briefly about that graphic that you guys are all looking at. It is a sample from pump station B8, the basin that is shown, the map that is shown there is the basin that is corresponding to that graphic. Whenever we do our analysis, I kind of wanted to point out a couple of things. When we do capacity analysis, we're looking at a myriad of things. Water availability, which we get numbers from the water treatment plant on a daily basis. We do fire flow checks, and we do have a GIS maps with yearly fire flows. So for the majority, I'd say 99% of all the fire hydrants in the city. And we also do sanitary sewer analysis, which is with our pump station runtimes. And this graphic is our ability to track from our end. And since we're not operations, we're not out in the field, but from our end, we can track what the status and condition is on the related infrastructure to a degree. When I say to a degree is we look at the pump station run times, and if we see that the numbers are progressively getting larger or they spike over a short period of time, we can identify an issue and talk internally about what is happening and what is creating this. This is
Okay.
something, yes, ma'am.
Diana, can we hold any more discussion until we get the graphic? I think the graphic is, one picture is worth 1,000 words. I know Pauline is working hard to get it up there, the graphic of the pump station. So give her a minute to try and get that up there.
Of course.
Okay. All right, this is I assume this is the pump station area. This is this is a big pump station downtown, right?
This is pump station A8. As you can see, it's on the New River. And this is just a sample pump station to show what it is, what the area associated of a regular pump station is of the basin with its pump station. So if you go to the actual graphic to the graph that was provided along with this map.
One more up. That's it. There
Correct.
you go.
So these are the nominal average pump operation times, or we call them NAPOT. These numbers tell us how much the pumps are running on average on any given day. The area of concern is the numbers are between 8 hours and 10 hours total. 10 hours being our max numbers. With all of this, if you look at the trend that is going on, this is a trend that's been building since 2014, and we get these values once a month. So since 2014, in this specific pump station, we can see that there is an increase over time. If you could scroll down just a little bit.
It's 20%, right?
Until about October last year, and then there's a drop off. So we can infer quite a few things from this. For example, there were I&I improvements that were probably done on that pump station to bring the numbers down, or improvements to the pump station that were done to bring the numbers down as well. So although we're not performing the actual checking of every pipe in the city, we have a way of determining what issues we can see visibly from just those numbers. We actually take a look at the area of concern as our guideline to recommend improvements on an area when somebody when the development that is coming in impacts a pump station in a very high degree.
Okay, so that if, for instance, that blue line just kept going up and up and up and up and started to cross the yellow line, okay, you would then say that additional development permits in that area would not be appropriate or would be of concern, and you'd have to figure out something to do? Is that what this graphic tells you?
The graphic first of all, we don't use the graphic internally unless we have to report this data to someone other than an engineer. So we are actually looking at the numbers generally. The graphic is just a visual representation of the numbers that we look at. However, to answer your question, yes, once the numbers climb to the yellow line, we start reporting internally that we are seeing an increase in demand from that pump station. And once we report that, we make sure that operations and both engineering are aware of that. So that way somebody can start addressing the issues in that area if they're known, or investigating if they're not known.
Okay, but you would not, since you're the person who does the DRC reviews and issues those letters to the Planning and Zoning Board, you're saying that you would not make them aware of this issue? You would make the internal department aware of the issue?
That is incorrect.
That is incorrect.
Yes.
Okay.
With this, a similar graphic to this is provided in every capacity letter. However, it's in a bar chart. Every capacity letter does receive a snapshot of what the pump station looks like at any given time when they come in for capacity analysis. This is a linear representation of the trend that has happened since 2015. So when somebody comes in for DRC, they're only seeing the final point, pretty much, of this graphic.
The final point would be like the bottom of the blue line.
Well, I'm talking about the value in April of 2020, because these are all values dating back to 2015.
Excuse me, these are 2015 values?
These are dating back to
Oh,
2015.
okay.
Going
All
from
right.
2015 to current to April of this year. So a
Okay.
capacity analysis would receive the latest numbers on the month that they came in or the month that they're being analyzed. And that would be equivalent to 1 point on this pump station, on this graphic. This graphic serves to tell us over time what has been happening to that basin. So from 2015, I can infer from this graph that there have been improvement done late in 2020 on pump station B8 because I can see the numbers drop off.
Or it could be that we had a pandemic and the offices were not occupied.
That could be also as well. However, we are also seeing we would see a reflection of that in other areas. So this is just, again, we don't look at it holistically. I'm not comparing it to pump station B9 or A7 or A21. I am looking at this specific pump station and I'm looking at its basin, and I am making sure that historically we are still looking okay. If we're noticing an upward trend over a period of 6 months, a very steep upward trend, that is generally a good cause for concern.
Well, you can see that there have been periods of time, like from July to April, before this drop off, which we could discuss. We could all debate what that drop off was attributed to.
Correct.
That it was on an upswing, and actually it's been on an upswing the entire time if you disregard this last drop off.
Correct.
Okay, so it's been steadily rising. When we got to the highest point in this blue line before the drop off, did you know how many more projects were coming online in that basin? And was that sort of like, could that like be added in a dotted line to this to see how close you're getting?
Okay, so we can actually tell what's coming into the basin. However, it would not be an accurate representation of those values to put them along with this graphic. This graphic is an overall graphic going back again from 2015.
I agree with you. I understand what you're saying. And this is a beautiful graphic and it's good information for planning purposes. But what I'm interested in is looking at this graphic or the numbers that this graphic represents. At one point, do you know how much more is going to be added to that particular pump station that has already been approved?
Yes, we do. When we issue the capacity analysis, that is also provided as part of capacity analysis letters.
Okay, that's cool. As long as you're not just looking at what's the number today, but what would the number be in the event that all of the development approval in that basin was built.
Correct.
And you
not all the development, all the approved development.
Excuse me. Yes, I meant to say all the approved development.
Yes,
as long as it stays under the yellow, I'm happy, you're happy, everybody's happy, right?
Correct. And
Okay,
the line also serves to tell us whether or not there are deficiencies in that pump station that we should be aware of that maybe have been caused by either inflow and infiltration and other such issues.
Yeah, well, that graphic doesn't tell you that. The other people who look at the graphic can tell you that, right?
Yes and no. We can actually make a small determination and then make the phone call to operations and say, I'm seeing this trend and I think this is going on. Can you confirm?
All right. Well, we have questions. Let's start with Ralph.
Yeah, I was going to say that the drop that occurred right after July, if it coincides with the completion of the sanitary sewer gravity lining, may be an indication. So you have dates of when repairs were made to the basin, to the to the vitrified clay pipe, or lined or whatever, and that may be an indication why that happens. In addition to a drought or something, a non-rainy season event, and so those are things that the graph you look at, but you can also coincide the completion or work performed in that basin that would affect the pump station's run times.
Correct. That is something that we take into account whenever we see a change, and we actually do. Whenever we see a negative change, is what prompts us to do a little more investigation. So whenever we see the upward trend, we start checking why is this happening. As more so when we see it start getting very steep and very close to the area of concern as we have it labeled there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Excellent. Peter.
So, Dronix, we heard last time from Dr. Gassman that some of the pump stations are being fitted with variable speed pumps. So can you speak to how that would show up on this graph, or whether you're aware of that?
Without getting too technical, I can explain very briefly how a VFD works. A VFD does not work like a regular impeller pump that takes in flow and spits out flow. What a variable speed pump does is it takes in flow, and you are supposed to maintain a specific amount of flow to maintain the efficiency of that pump in order to maintain that pump working at its optimum. Now, the main difference is that variable speed pumps will have multiple points of efficiency. So you may have multiple flows that actually achieve the same amount of efficiency in the pump. So a basin with a variable speed pump would have to have majorly fluctuating flows, or I would say a steady flow in a specific range for it to maintain its efficiency. Generally, the best way to control that flow and to make sure that it runs at efficiency is to know you have more demand, so that way you can control what's going in through the pump and maintain that pump efficiency point.
But that graph that you have up there with a variable speed pump, would the blue line then be operating much closer to the yellow?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
You really need, in such a circumstance, you're getting a false impression, correct? Because it's looking like it's getting too close to the yellow, etc. So you need to annotate it and say, this is a variable speed pump. Don't worry so much.
We have only 4 variable speed pumps that we look at there, and these are for 3 of the repump stations, since the pump stations are labeled into A, B, and C categories. So A repump, B repump, and C repump are variable speed pumps. In addition to, I forget which is the only regular basin that has a variable speed pump. I can pull that up in a minute, but we don't have that many of them because you need to exceed your flow values in order to control the flow going into them.
And your information on flow time, on run time, is coming from where?
From the pump stations themselves, once a month from operations reports.
Don't forget, FYI, that the Hayes and Sawyer report has given us a table with all what they believed at the time they did the study, which was not that long ago now, to be the pump stations having excessive run times. There's a table in the Hayes and Sawyer report, and they're exactly similar to your presentation, except it's a table and a point in time, I guess. In excess of 8 hours, it's starting to get worrying, and then they put in red anything with over 10 hours. So I'm just asking that you make sure the information is broadly similar between the two.
Of course, sir. This information comes straight from the source. The report did obtain its information from previous sources at that time as well. All of this information comes from the pump stations themselves. They have information that gets recorded manually and entered to an electronic database and then transferred to us. Yes, so we get that information. We get that data point once a month.
Okay, well, this is real-time data, and maybe Omar knows the answer to this. Do we have, I assume we have this real-time data on all of the pump stations. Are any of them in the area of concern? You probably won't know that because you look at specific ones, but maybe Omar knows that.
Actually, I could answer that question if you don't mind, Omar.
No.
Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you. Although we look at specific pump stations, we are connected to operations in such a way where we have records for all of the pump stations.
Excellent.
So I can actually check adjacent pump stations to see how are things in neighboring areas. I can tell you right now that, for example, within the last year, we had the problems with A7 and A13. And what happened with A7 is that A7 got so large that it couldn't be developed on until A13 came online, and took part of A7's flow.
I remember that in terms of the development review process.
Correct.
One or two of the projects, you said that this project could not go forward until there was one of the pump stations was actually, the flow was redirected in order to make capacity available.
A similar condition is also happening. That is correct. And a similar condition is also happening for pump station 821 and 824 that will be coming online in 2022. So we do see pump stations hit the area of concern, and that is a tool that we use to let operations and our internal teams know that there is a need for improvements.
Okay, well, this brings up the question that I think Jerry had about the timing of improvements. Okay, and it's important that you identify the problem and you let operations know that there is a problem. But is the problem solved before that new development comes online?
That is something that I cannot speak to just because I don't deal with timing directly. What we do here is we analyze pump stations, we analyze run times, and we convey the data to the people and any of our team that can make the decisions on that.
Okay, Jerry, does that speak to the issue that you brought up? If you're with us still, Jerry? About the timing and who's checking to make sure all these things are happening at the appropriate time?
There's, the discussion was very robust. Everybody has an opinion about this. The trend line on this map, on this graph, is definitely going up. Okay, and it's been identified there's an area of concern. So my assumption is that once you pass the yellow line, you have to do something. Is that the spirit of the yellow line? Or is the yellow line, it's too late, and the red line is a disaster? What do the two colored lines mean?
Okay, that's a good question, sir. So the yellow line is actually our early alert. It's us pretty much being, once we hit the yellow line, it is our protocol to let operations and engineering, the rest of engineering, know that there is an issue with the pump station. We're still working comfortably between 8 and 10, and to go between 8 and 10, it does take some time. When we hit 10, we know that the pump station at that point is overtaxed. So 8 is our early detection system. 10 is the max that we would like to see. However, the pump stations can run longer because there are factors of safety in place.
Oh no, I get that. You're missing a little bit of my point.
Yes, sir.
The trend in this graph is definitely up. Do you know why it's going up?
Actually, sir, if I may correct you, the trend from July to April this year is going down.
I'm looking at my phone. All I know is I see a line, the peaks in the sinusoidal ripple.
The largest peak you're seeing.
The next one is higher than the last one.
Correct, sir. And the peak you're seeing on your graphic is from October 2020. The closest current value in April of this year is around 2.2, I would say, or 2.5 based on our graphic.
In October of 2020, we had massive rains, which is probably the infiltration that got into the system, correct?
Well, Charlie, you're answering my question. The overall line from the lowest spot to where we are now, yes, the top spot to now is down, but overall, RSS is going up.
I would say that we're also at the lowest point in the last 3 or 4 years too. Now.
Yeah, but I think we're getting hung up on this particular line.
Yeah, size 6
right.
pump.
There are other lines where the blue line is approaching the yellow line. There are other pump stations. Okay?
Thank you, Marilyn. My question is even more simple than that. Where do you take action?
We start reporting deficiencies in the system as soon as we see the numbers go past 8.
That's the answer. Past 8. Okay. And so my question is, if you were to look at all of the pump stations in the city, how many are below 8? How many are in the area between 8 and 10? And are there any of them past 10? That would be just a simple graphic that we would, I would like to see. Peter.
We can definitely compile that data
Thank
and and we can let you know exactly what the numbers look like. It
I
would
would
probably
really-
be, it would probably be more of a count than anything else. We would probably just say,
Fine,
would-
just fine, just.
of course.
just excellent information for us to have. Peter?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you a question about this though?
Oh, yeah, Charlie, you haven't had a long time to speak here. Charlie?
So the blue line, which is the run times, when you see that line go up, what does that indicate to you? Does it indicate that there's an increase in demand? Does it increase? Does it correlate? For instance, I'm assuming that the heavy summer months were the rainy months, not heavy use months, but it was infiltration. What do you get in and try to understand why they go, what makes it go up and down, or
That's actually something we discuss internally. I mean, once we, for example, for the trend from, I would say, July last year to October of last year, after we started seeing going down, at first, of course, we were relieved because when we see numbers go up, we want to see where they land and then when they start going down. And afterwards, we start pretty much asking the questions of what is it that happened here, and we start looking at development that came in within that time and comparing also rain patterns at that time as well for infiltration.
And what do you see? What's
on this?
what
We
are-
haven't done the analysis on this one. If I may inform you, there is 194 pump stations in the city. So
I
to
know.
perform that deep level of analysis, it does take a little bit of time, and we would have to go in one by one. And we can perform it on a request basis. However, we don't investigate unless things are going absolutely south. Like once we start hitting the area of concern, that's what prompts us to start investigating to see what's causing the negative impact.
Have you seen improvements due to the ongoing realignment?
Yes.
Do you see it in specific lift stations?
If we were to look into whichever pump stations were being benefited by the lining project, we would be able to see a change and decrease in the inflow and infiltration through the rainy months.
Wonderful.
How big of an impact do you think the relining's having in terms of capacity?
I am not entirely sure, sir, because that's not something that we generally, in this specific group, we don't concentrate on that. The impact of the I&I effort is something that is left to the water team, not so much our team.
Well, somebody should be looking at it. Somebody should be making that assessment. Shane.
And it's a good story for the city.
It's a good story. Jeez, yes, Shane. Your hands up, Shane.
Electronics, the 10-hour mark. Now, is that coming from 10 state standards?
It is from ASC, I believe, and it's also from guidelines set by our consultant that developed the SOP for this. So they're also in agreement with ASC guidelines.
Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of a recommendation.
They did similar work in Miami-Dade, and that was their recommendation time. And I think they used a lot of that as a precursor, since Miami-Dade served as a very good template for City of Fort Lauderdale's infrastructure.
Okay, so if it 8 hours being your trigger to start concern, if it exceeds 10 hours, that's for total pump time.
Yes, that would average pump time for 1 day.
So if it's a duplex pump station, then both pumps are running about 5 hours a day?
Right.
Okay, so it's not like the station's going to fail. It's just more of a recommendation time that they should be operating. Okay.
Correct. And I also mentioned earlier that we have factors of safety in place within each pump as well. I mean, pumps are designed to carry a specific factor of safety as you're about to load it. Because sometimes you may exceed the recommended flow, but hopefully you're not doing it for too long.
Right. So it's a concern, but not critical.
Right.
When does it become critical?
Well, we assess critical as 10 hours. However, the factors of safety can keep us going beyond 10 hours.
Yeah, but you don't want to get into a situation where, like on the bridge, it's past its prime, but there's a safety factor, and that it's
correct.
Break.
That's why we're using 10.
10's good. 10's good.
Yeah,
okay.
it's a subject for another day.
Yeah.
This is the wrong kind of graph to do what we're discussing.
All right, Omar,
quality control has something they call a control chart. Here's the range the pump should work in. Here's the mean number of hours for the day for that pump. After you pass the upper control limit, you got to do something. After you pass the top limit, you shut it off. I mean, this is there could be better ways of using this graph to actually cause an action to happen.
Yeah, Marilyn, I just want to point out that operations look at these graphs on a daily basis. They monitor all the pump stations. What Dronix is talking about is that when there is an application for development, he might look at X graphs, but their task is not to look at this all the time. It's operations, and that's when they come to us and say, hey, by the way, we need to allocate money for this pump station X, and that's how we plan this. But operations is the one that is constantly monitoring these graphs.
So operations could give us those numbers about how many pump stations there are, how many pumps are in the, yeah.
They can. I mean, Dronix has access to that too.
Okay, somebody.
Yeah.
So, Chair?
Peter, yes, you're next.
The information, there is already information which we've had in the Hayes and Sawyer report on how many are in the red. And so the public or the commission would see, Pauline, if you can put me on the screen, I'll hold up the Hayes and Sawyer table.
Okay.
So there's two spreadsheets like that in the Hayes and Sawyer, and the ones in red, according to Hayes and Sawyer, are running above 10 hours a day currently. And this is why I was saying to Dronix that he has to reconcile these, at least these two sources of information, because if a development goes to the commission, the public will look at the relevant pump station, and what is available to them immediately is this Hayes and Sawyer report.
Oh, so thank you very much for that, Peter, because actually that was the information I was asking for. We actually have had it. Well, correct. We had it buried in the Hazen and Sawyer report.
Based on the way Dronix described it on a point in time rather than a continuous graph, which is why it might be useful, as you said, Chair, earlier on, you know, why doesn't this whole graph in effect go to the commission associated with the capacity review? Because it's a complex story.
Interesting.
If I may speak to that table, we actually keep a similar table in our in the very first tab of our spreadsheet that gives us the reports for all of them. And what we've done with that table is that we have translated that table into our inner workings, and it's constantly updating. That table may have data that is not current, so that table is constantly updated through the monthly reports that come into us from operations.
That's great, but people need to know this.
Of course, sir.
And it would be good to see a more up to date chart like that, and see if we're making progress, that we're getting less red and we're making progress. Ralph, you had your hand up.
Yes, I was going to say that these graphs can be misleading, mainly because you may have a pump station that only consists of 2 pumps or maybe 3 pumps. Maybe those pumps are undersized because of the increase development and flows over time. There's a number of variables that come into play on reading those graph. I mean, the variable speed is one example that it will give you a flatter, longer time element, because the pump is operating within their performance curve in a certain range to make it more economical, as opposed to having it just bust and run outside of that performance curve. So there's a number of things that interplay with that graph that is not apparent in just looking at it. So I think that, you know, it needs to be some coordination between the two groups to provide that information in consideration for modifications or whatever the case may be, increasing the size of the pumps or putting them on a variable speed type of thing, which I think is a program worthwhile to do eventually to all of them. But that's a decision for the city. But that's all I wanted to indicate.
Okay, well, this has been a very robust, to use one of Jerry's words, a discussion. And I think that we actually gonna have a second interesting discussion relative to the water main breaks, which is the next item on the agenda. So if Pauline, you could bring up that graphic, and Anisha, who is gonna speak to that, or Omar? Who's gonna speak to that particular piece of information?
Gary, are you on the line? Gary, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Gary. Gary, can you go ahead and speak to the water breaks?
For the month of April, if you have my Excel sheet, we have it showed that we had 12 breaks, which 8 of those was planned. We have 4 breaks. One was due to age. The other one was a 2-inch valve leak, and 2 of them was a contract to hit the line.
So in the last month, there was 12.
Yeah, but it was really, well, we counted our plant. We did plant maintenance, which we went there. We replaced broken valves, and we did coupons to check the mains. So we counted those as water breaks, which was actually plant, but we really had 4 breaks.
Okay. All right, but if you look at this graphic, the breaks seem to be geographically located in one area. Can you pull down, Pauline, to where all the breaks were?
And Gary, we're always a month behind just because it takes you, because the meeting's the first Monday.
Stop, right there. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure Gary was talking about the same information. Wow, yes.
Yeah, I mean.
No, I'm talking about a different information. I'm sorry, I'm talking about, I have April in front of me. The month of March, we only had 3 water main breaks.
Yeah, but what does this graphic represent? This graphic represents the water main breaks within a certain period of time. And they all appear to be in a relatively the same area.
Well,
so Gary, I'm sorry, Gary, if I can interject. So Madam Chair, Gary actually is a new supervisor in this area. And so I wanted him to be on because I want him to be able to speak to these issues. But Gary, just to make sure you understand what she's asking, there are the breaks that you looked at and you see January 2, February 6, and then the 2 in March. And so basically showing the depiction of all of those breaks and showing they're all kind of in the same proximity. And so that's what we're asking for. And the purpose of this map was to start to see if there was some pattern around those breaks. And so if you could speak to that, I think some of this may be breaks, but some of it may be some work that we were doing as well.
Chair Momano, the title on the graphic reads January through March of 2021.
Thank you. Thank you. Well,
that's right. Which is why I just mentioned that it is the 2, 6, and the 2. And so then I know that Gary was talking about 12 because I wanted him to be clear that we're always a month behind.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I understand that, but just taking the graphic at its word, in 3 months in 2021, there was a whole bunch of breaks in this concentrated area. Does that tell you anything?
Well, to answer it was capture break, but we have a water project there where they're replacing the force main, and some of that came because of the work from down there due to the old age of the pipe, or a contractor probably hit a line. That's what most of the breaks came in that one vicinity.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 of the 10 were from contractors hitting lines.
Well, that's good to know.
We've had quite a bit of that lately, contractor hits, and I'm not quite sure what's going on, but we've been getting a lot of that lately.
Stupid contractors, that's one.
Yeah.
Well, poor maps too. That could be
they do locates.
No.
A lot of times, usually is ineptitude from what I've seen on these jobs.
Okay, well, you're on the ground, so you know.
Well, they do locates before, sometimes they're not paying attention, so mistakes happen. Instead of doing big, they just using the heavy equipment just to go in there and start digging.
Okay.
The 691 one we did.
But Gary, anything that you're seeing, Any patterns that you're seeing with regards to the fact that these are all in close proximity?
No, that's the only reason why. Other than that, it was mainly spread out just in that one. Just even next month when we do this again, it'll be in this one area in Victoria Park.
Right.
That's where they're doing the project.
Okay, so it's largely related to ongoing work in the area.
Yes.
Well, that's good. As long as we know the reason and that there's not some systematic problem with the water pipes in that area, then we're comfortable. I'm comfortable.
If I may interject something,
Yeah.
was this area cluster, was this development basically, or developments constructed and the installation dates on the water mains about the same within a couple of years or so of one another back in the 60s or 70s, and they're now all experiencing some kind of failure because of their age? And are they cast iron pipe, for an example, all the same material, or what?
So what we've seen that they have been cast iron. Yes, the age due to the vibration, what's going on there, they starting to break.
All right. Okay.
Okay, well, okay. Which brings me to the question of how is the study of the water mains going? The study that was similar to the study on the sewer pipes, we were doing a study on the water mains. How is that going? How's that progressing?
So Rick is actually the person that is actually
yes.
working on that. Rick, are you on? So Rick is working on that mapping. And actually, I want to say, is it 89, Gary? 89 of those valves, all 89 of the valves have been located that we needed to locate?
It's only 80. It's 80 raw water valves, and all of them have been located.
Okay, right. So, and that was just completed I want to say last week, Wednesday, that last valve was located. So that's completed, but Rick is actually spearheading that. Rick, are you on?
I don't see him. I don't see Rick.
Okay.
Yeah, Rick is not on.
Okay, but so Rick is spearheading that effort and moving along. He's also spearheading the AMI project, which he has 6 vendors or 6 contractors, so we can do a pilot, and that's going to be spread out among throughout the city of Fort Lauderdale evenly. And we're already moving that project along, well, moving the documents along so that we can move that project and get started. I don't know what the NTP is for that date, but it is moving along. It's actually being routed to the city manager's office.
Excellent.
For that pilot.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions about this information, this new information we're getting about the water system? No? Well then.
Omar's hand is raised.
Oh, Omar, I'm sorry, Omar.
Yeah, I just want to, this model is going to be completed in July, the one that Rich is working on.
Oh, good.
Water
July of this year. That's excellent. Peter.
So are we on to the yellow dots?
The yellow dots. Well, let's talk about the yellow dots. We were focusing on the red dots. Let's talk about the yellow dots. Peter, is that what you want us to talk about?
Yes, yes.
Okay, well.
Well, should I just say my piece? I could be wrong. Pauline, could you put me on the screen again? So when I looked at these yellow dots and I looked at the Hazen Sawyer, it's going to be very difficult for you to see, I guess. Very, very difficult. But it appeared to me that we're close to where these yellow dots are, that one is on a medium likelihood of failure line, according to Hazen Sawyer, and the other one, there is a length of red. The other one, there is a length of red under the intracoastal, I think, there. And there appeared to have been failures before. I guess, again, the point I'm making is that it appears quite a lot is known about the condition of these pipes. So it shouldn't always be that big a surprise.
And, you know, Peter, you're absolutely right. And we know about a lot of the work, the issues, but it's just a matter of being strategic about the timing, the money, and moving those projects along. And we've had several meetings where we've talked about do we expedite this because we know it's in the CIP and it's a project that is actually scheduled to get started. We had another recent break. I'm not even sure it's here because I believe it's one that just recently happened, and it's in our CIP. But we're going to go ahead and move forward because we've had so many breaks in the past on that same force main line that we just moved forward and decided to go ahead and do the repair right away instead of just doing a fix. So
Yeah.
those are some of the issues that we kind of try to have to balance with. Sometimes the money is not here yet because it's scheduled as a part of the next tranche.
No, believe me, I understand that. But when I read the story in the newspaper about one of these breaks, because to the public, they say things like, well, there's a new Publix just being built down the street and a new Homewood Suites. So they associate, so there again, it comes back to why we are feeling that condition is not necessarily adequately taken account of in doing development review. That's oversimplified, I know, but
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any more discussion about the water and sewer breaks reporting with mapping? Okay. Can we move on to the CIP financial report? Okay, can you put that up, Pauline? I had a couple of questions. This is really good information. This is like rolling information. And the first, if you could make that a little bigger, thank you. The first piece of information is the overall project analysis for the bond, which is a total of $204 million. And this gives you all the categories. And the important part I think about this graphic is that we are 56% of the monies have already been spent. A good portion additionally is encumbered, and only about $67 million of the first tranche has not been spent yet. It's the remaining balance. Am I reading this right, Anisha?
Yes, you are.
And then if you go a little further down, Pauline, then it gives you a further breakdown of the actual projects that are in this first tranche. And if you go all the way down, you'll find out that it ends up being the exact same amount of money. Stop. $204 million. So I understand this graphic. I think I understand this graphic. This is all the projects that were going to be done with the first $200 million, and the progress that we've made on that. But when you go to the next graphic, if you go further down, now we got a different one. Now we got a consent order projects financial report summary, and you got a different number. You got 259 million. Can you just explain to me without getting crazy, what's the difference between the two?
I'll do my best actually, because I had actually gone through this. I had Kim Holcomb, who was on the line, prepared to speak to this report. And as you know, I've actually been doing utilities operations. And so been kind of straddling the fence. But these are the consent order projects. So these are all of those projects that we know are part of the consent order. And so that, if I understand this correctly, as I think I understand it, there are some of the projects that are included in here that could very well be that are also included in the bond. And so there's a meshing, and where you will have, for example, if we could think of one project that's on the bond side, and you'll see it here because it's also a consent order project as well. Does that make sense?
Aren't all the consent order projects bond projects?
No, there may be a portion of it may be funded through bonds, and a portion of it could be funded through cash.
That's what I figured it might be, that when you look at the first charts, the first aggregation of the money, that's how we're spending the money from the bond. But when you look at the total picture, we're spending the money from the bond, plus we're spending money from the CIP to do those projects. Right.
Right, there's some
to do those
enterprise
projects.
dollars in there.
Right. So it's about at least maybe 50 million more dollars that we put into these projects that were beyond the bond money that we're using the enterprise funds for.
That's
Okay?
my understanding,
That-
Madam Chair. Yes,
I
that's my
figured that that
understanding.
would be what it was, and I'm glad we're sort of thinking the same way. Does this get us toward an understanding of when we need to do the next bond?
Well, the next tranche is 23. It's already scheduled for 23.
So we already made we already have made that decision that in 23 we're going to borrow another 200 million.
Well, that was a part of the plan, and as we've gone through the those meetings with the budget office, that's always been the plan to do the next tranche in 23. Now we'll have a meeting with gosh, while I'm drawing a blank, we'll be doing our revenue estimating conference within the next, I believe, the next week they'll be doing it, and where they'll actually go through those dollars and all of those formulas to identify the revenues that we have and what we will need in order to make sure that we can meet our bond covenant, you know, for debt payments. But right now it is 23. That is the schedule. That's what our CIP shows, that the next tranche will be in 23.
And do we have a list of projects that are going into that, or is that just looking at the
Yes.
CIP? It's the next projects in the CIP.
It's the projects that are listed in the CIP, and as a part of our developing the CIP for this year, we actually went through that and identified which projects we were going to use, which parts we were going to include.
Okay, so that you gave us that information last month. If we go back to
That's
that
correct.
last month's information, we could see all the projects in the CIP going forward in 5 years, which ones are going to be in that 23 bond act.
That is correct.
Okay. I know that's a little complicated and it may be more information than anybody wants to know, but I found that fascinating. Peter, did you want to say anything about these?
For once, no.
Okay, get the hand down. All right.
Come on, Peter. I was waiting for your question.
Okay. And the last piece, if nobody has any questions on this, the last piece of information is, I think, the most fascinating, and that's the listing of all of the developer impact fees that we've collected. Can we go to that one, Pauline? Impact fees paid by developer. Okay. I have a couple of.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you, Omar, for pulling this. I believe it was Omar or Pauline that was able to get this for us, because I know we've been trying to get this for you for the last month or so.
Right.
So thank
and
you
this,
for whoever was able to put this together.
And this is really cool. I mean, from October of 2020 to April of 2021, they didn't add it up, but it's a lot of money. It's a little bit of money for every sort of residential building, but it's a lot of money from commercial buildings. Omar, do you have any idea what the total bottom line of this subset is?
I don't think we added it up, but
Okay.
we can get that number for you.
All right.
What year do you want to start?
No. This chart that you provided for us.
Mm-hmm.
If you just add it all up, I see it comes out to a lot of money.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. And what I don't understand about this chart is what is this last column? The last column in the chart. Because I notice it's sometimes it says civic associations. Is this just a location or something?
We have Igor on the line that can speak to this information.
Okay, Igor, you're on. Igor?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Hi, Igor. Can you explain
Hello,
this
hello,
chart
everybody.
to us? Yeah, can you explain these charts to us? Park impact fee report?
Hold on just a second. Yeah, this charts basically the impact fees that's been paid by the developers on various projects, and it's
For parks, though, right?
yeah. You have the project numbers there, and that's. I don't know what else.
What is the last column there? Igor, what is the last column where it has an email address?
The last column?
Yeah.
You know, that must be a contact person or contact email who is on that project, but I will clarify that and I can get back to you on this.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's a contact on the project.
Okay, some of them are anonymous, some of them are civic associated, but that's a detail. I mean, that's a detail. These are projects that have paid park impact fees, okay? So let's say it's
it's called park impact fees, but this is basically an impact fees that's been paid.
Oh, it's everything? It's water and sewers?
Yeah, there's not park impact fees, it's impact fees.
Well, now, Chair, I'm confused.
I'm confused.
So, you're not alone. So this is all the impact fees paid for certain developments. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
So some of this is water sewer impact fees, traffic in there as well?
No, you don't pay the city traffic impact fees, you pay the county.
Okay, so there's parks, what other fees are there? Parks impact fees, water sewer, is there anything else?
Sewer and water.
Sewer and water, yes, that's correct.
And parks.
So, and what we've just asked about before is, how is that money, specifically water sewer impact fees, where does that money finish up? And indeed, with the current, the way I read something about the current impact fee amendment going through the state legislature, it will have to be explicitly accounted for as to how it's been spent. So we've been questioning previously how much water sewer impact fees are generated each year and how is that money spent? So this, it's all thrown together here. You've got parks impact fees in here as well. Are we getting this correctly?
Igor, this is the first time we've seen some of this information, and it's a start. It's a beginning of trying to understand this impact fee stuff. Is there any way you can break it out between the park impact fees and the water and sewer impact fees?
These are the water and sewer impact fees.
Oh, just mislabeled then.
Yeah, just I don't know why it's called park. It's just the way it's reported.
I'm sorry. Okay, so then we're not confused. This
we did not generate this form. It's just it's being reported, and why it's called park, I don't know exactly. If you want me to find out, I will. But that's
no. As long as you're telling me this is water and sewer. So when I look at this,
that's specifically water and sewer impact fees.
Right. So when I look at this, I see big payments for the commercial buildings. I see payments for each residential development. And then when you add this all up, as Peter says, it's not an insignificant amount of money. And he's right in that the new proposed legislation in Tallahassee now calls for very strict accounting of where the money went into what projects. Do we also have some indication of that we've been keeping track of? Where does the money go? Yes, Omar.
I believe that Kim Holcomb has that data.
So maybe we should put this off until Kim can join us.
Yeah.
Okay, Omar.
She can tell us. Yeah.
Right. Let's put this up at the top of the agenda for next week, next month, instead of at the bottom. Okay. And let's follow up on this. I can get rid of that. Okay. Is that okay with everybody? Because it is for 4:44, and we've been looking for this information for a long time. So let's not shortcut this information. Let's put it on the agenda for the first part of the next meeting and have Kim here who can discuss it.
Hey, just quick note here, just to answer your question about how much was this particular amount is 1.8 million, 1.82 million. For this starts in October, I believe, and 2020 and until today.
Okay, all right, well, it's good to know. All right, does anybody have anything else they want to add? We just finished the agenda, number 7, impact fees paid by developer.
Yeah, I just like
Yeah.
to wish Anisha the best of luck, and I'm
Yes.
sorry to see you to go, but appreciate your help and expertise during this time.
Yeah, we're gonna miss her.
You've really been a great asset, and I just want to give you the best. Appreciate your efforts and everything. Outstanding job. Best to you.
Best to you,
Thank
absolutely.
you. Thank you, Mrs. Deltman, and thank you, Madam Chair, for your leadership in going through this and running this meeting. I know it's not an easy feat. And thank you to all of you and your leadership and your efforts, because you're volunteering to do something and volunteering for your time to be a part of this for the city is a huge thing that I think we all should be proud of and thankful for. So thank you for your dedication and service. I've enjoyed my time with the city, but wasn't looking to go. But when an opportunity like this comes, I cannot pass it by.
And you should not. And you should not.
And I'm happy that we got to this today, where you guys was able to make a motion and accomplish something that is a huge, huge, huge effort. So I was happy to be a part of that. So,
okay.
Well, Mrs. Daniels, since you're leaving, I wish you the best. But if you wish to come back later on, come on.
Come on. You're always welcome back.
Which city are you going to again, Anisha?
I'm going to the city of North Miami.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I got a lot of work ahead of me there too.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Out of the frying pan and into the fire. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate everybody for being here today and for the heavy lift that we've done. And hopefully we will be able to keep working and knock off some more of these things, depending on what the commission says about our life going forward. And if nobody has anything else they want to add, I move to adjourn the meeting. Is that right, Roosevelt? I can move to adjourn the meeting, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Be it so moved that I adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. See you soon. Right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.